What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about wild animals after SHTF, and I'm actually in the woods right now and on my property, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about wild animals and the threat that animals pose after SHTF. And just so you guys are aware, I am carrying my Smith & Wesson Model 500 with 440 grain bear loads right now because there was a bear sighting, multiple bear sightings over here the last week or so. And so I want to just talk to you guys about animals after SHTF. All right, it's a beautiful night tonight. It's nice and cool. Temperatures are in the 40s right now. All right, I'm gonna actually turn this light off for now, all right, to save my night vision, and instead I'm gonna use my flashlight. All right, so let's talk about wild animals after SHTF and animals. All right, I think a lot of preppers underestimate the threat of wild animals after SHTF. I think a lot of urban preppers particularly, they have these plans of bugging out, and they have a bug out bag, and there's lots of talk about bug out bags on YouTube and bugging out. That's a really popular thing. Just go on YouTube and search bug out bag and you'll find thousands of videos. But what a lot of preppers don't realize is that bugging out in the woods, all right, in an environment like this, could actually be more dangerous than staying put in an urban area, okay? Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, urban area, you got rioters, you got criminals, and yeah, those are dangerous threats as well. But have, any of you guys ever spent a night alone in the woods, miles away from civilization? I guarantee you, if you spend at least one night in the woods, far away from civilization, deep in the woods, by yourself, it'll make you think twice about wanting to bug out, in the middle of nowhere, okay, with no strategy, no communications. All right, and I think a lot of preppers, they have this fantasy, that they're gonna bug out, and they're going to throw their bug out bag on their back, and they're going to head for the hills, and everything's going to be okay. But guys, what happens if, let's say you're going to bug out, and let's say it's your first night of bugging out, or you're fleeing from the city, okay? And let's say you have like a get home bag, and you're in the process of fleeing the city to get home, or you're bugging out from the city and you have to cross through wooded areas like this, or wilderness areas like here in upstate New York. And the first night that you're bugging out, or you're doing an escape and evasion, you get surrounded by a pack of coyotes, or a black bear stalking you. That's a pretty terrifying experience. Even for a larger man like myself. I'm a 250-pound man, former powerlifter, very good shooter, very good at hand-to-hand combat, having had multiple real-world hand-to-hand combat situations as a bouncer. And even me myself, I get uneasy about being in the wilderness by myself, deep in the woods. It's not something that I really look forward to, because I know there's a lot of threats out there in the wilderness and in the woods, and I don't think a lot of preppers realize that, and they haven't really thought about that. They just have this romantic idea that they're gonna bug out, and everything's gonna be fine, and they got their Glock 9mm, and the biggest threat that they have to worry about are some rioters and some psychopaths, which are dangerous also, obviously, but animals can actually be more dangerous than human beings, because wild animals, they have, first of all, they're faster, They're stronger. You know, they have better senses than people do, okay? They have a more dense bone structure, many of them, especially larger animals like bears and, you know, elk and moose, okay? So, you know, dealing with an animal is in many ways harder than dealing with a person, all right? Because animals can close distances fast. They have very good sense of smell. Their bodies are just, you know, physically tough. Okay, they can take a lot of punishment and they can soak up a lot of bullets. Okay, versus human beings, we have soft bodies. You know, we can be killed with a 22. You know, we don't have like heavy fat layers or, you know, heavy bone structures. So, you know, I think that preppers need to consider the threat from animals, you know, especially if you have a bug out plan and you plan to bug out from the city, or, you know, a get home plan. You need to factor in the possibility that you're going to run into dangerous animals that could pose a threat to your safety, okay? And I've done a video on this, you know, a year ago. This is not something that's really new to me, but I wanted to really talk about it again because I have a lot of new subscribers now. When I made my video last year, it was actually earlier this year, I only had like 500 subscribers, you know, so I wanted to talk about this again and bring it up again because I have a lot of new subscribers and my channel has grown a lot since I put that initial video out that I did. So a couple of things you need to do is, first of all, you need to be familiar with what kind of animals are in your area where you're going to either be bugging out or where you're bugging in, okay? Your primary residence, your alternate location, your areas that you're going to be moving through while you're bugging out. All right, you need to know what kind of animals and wildlife are in those areas, okay? If, let's say, for example, I live in Spokane, Washington, and I have a cabin in Idaho and I want to bug out, you know, 50 miles from Spokane on foot, and I have to go through Idaho. Well, you know, obviously there's probably grizzly bears, there's probably wolves, cougars. You know, even an elk can be very dangerous during the rutting season. Elk can be extremely territorial. Even white-tailed deer can be very territorial. Moose as well. Even a mother moose with her calves can charge you and stomp you. And a bull moose during the rut can attack you. Same thing with elk, same thing with white-tailed deer. It happens a lot. Bison. Those are a lot of animals to deal with, you know. Now, if you live in the eastern U.S., you probably don't have to deal with as many threats. You have mainly black bears, coyotes, and in some areas, wolves and cougars, okay? And potentially moose as well, depending on what part of the east you live in. And then, you know, obviously if you're in the south, alligators and snakes and stuff like that, you know, but so you got to think about what are the wild animals in your area, in your bug out location, and any kind of area that you're going to be bugging out through. You know, if you, let's say, have a bug out plan and you're going to be hiking 50 miles to get to point B, okay, which could be a bug out location, it could be your house, whatever that location is, you have to know what are the animal threats that you're going to potentially be coming across, okay? In my opinion, I think coyotes and black bears are probably the most common animal threat and that could really pose a problem for most preppers in the majority of the U.S. Coyotes and black bears pretty much inhabit all of the U.S. They're very adaptable animals. They're very opportunistic. They have great senses. They're very resilient, okay? So, you know, black bears and coyotes, in my opinion, you should be prepared to deal with them. You know, and what really motivated me to do this video is, you know, my parents were actually going for an evening walk in this area here, and they ran into a bear at the end of their driveway. And, you know, they were walking after work, just going for an evening stroll, and they saw a bear 20 feet away, and the bear didn't see them until, you know, they were really close to the bear, and the bear kind of got freaked out, and the bear stood up on its hind legs. And luckily my parents were only like, you know, 100 yards from their door, you know, so my mom freaked out and she started running, which is the worst thing you can do. But, you know, my dad being a seasoned woodsman, having encountered big bears in the woods before, he wasn't really scared by the bear. It was a medium-sized bear anyway, but there's been a lot of bear sightings over here this year, some big bears around this area. But it just got me thinking that, you know, a lot of preppers, they don't understand that, you know, bugging out into the woods, okay, it's, you know, yeah, you're going to be getting away from people, okay, but there may be even greater threats in the woods than people, you know. I mean, what if you know, you bug out, okay, and you have a man-eating bear that's stalking you, and it's happened before, guys, okay, even close to where I live, not far away, okay. A student was killed and eaten by a black bear, okay, a couple of years ago. He was hiking, and he was actually in a group of 3 people, all right? There was actually 3 people. They were hiking. 3 students were hiking, and this black bear started stalking them, you know, and it chased down one of the students and killed him, and started consuming his flesh, all right? You know, you don't have to live in Yellowstone in order to, you know, have to deal with animal threats, you know. Bears, black bears and coyotes are moving closer to civilization. Same thing with cougars. You know, there's been a lot of cougar attacks in California, even in the Los Angeles hills, you know, Hollywood Hills area. So, you know, you don't have to, you know, live in Yellowstone or, you know, Alaska to deal with wild animals that could pose a threat to your safety, you know, after SHTF. Um, you know, there's all kinds of different animals all over the U.S. And, you know, all it takes is really one, you know, let's say rabid coyote or rabid raccoon to bite you in the leg while you're sleeping. You know, let's say you pitch a shelter, you pitch a little tarp shelter at night, and you fall asleep, and a coyote, you know, you wake up to a coyote chewing on your leg. You know, you fight the coyote off, but it's too late. You know, you're going to get an infection, you're going to get rabies. These are things that a lot of preppers don't think about, all right? They have this fantasy of bugging out, but many of them never spent time in the woods, all right, by themselves, far away from civilization. And I'm telling you, you know, even for a large guy like myself, you know, with good hand-to-hand combat experience and good shooting skills and good woodsmanship skills, I get uneasy when I go deep in the woods by myself, all right? And it's not something that you should really look forward to and think that it's going to be the best option. It's really not the best option to be out in the woods by yourself, all right? If you have no other choice, of course. Now, if you know, that being said, you know, so you're going to have to bug out, you know, sometimes you're going to have to bug out. So you have to think about, if you come across a dangerous animal, you know, how are you going to deal with it? And you need to be familiar with the, like I said, the animals that you're going to be, you know, potentially running into. You need to be familiar with their habits. You need to understand their sign, their tracks, their scat, you know, any other kind of signs that they're present in your area or in the area that you're moving through. Let's say you're bugging out and it's an escape and evasion situation and you're escaping from the city. You know, let's say you're moving through an area, you know, and you need to be familiar with, you know, signs that there's a bear in the area, or signs of coyote kills or cougar kills, you know. These are things you need to be familiar with. Marking trees, you know, bears mark trees to mark their territory. Same thing with wolves and cougars, you know, they'll scratch up the bark of a tree. You need to understand how to, you know, see, you know, determine what different types of animal scat looks like, you know, and tracks, and where different types of predatory animals are likely to be. Okay, so you know when to be on high alert. Okay, if you are walking through an area and you see bear tracks, and you see a set of small bear tracks and large bear tracks together, what does that tell you? It tells you that there's a mama bear with her cubs walking through, and you need to be on red alert. So you need to think about these things. Now also, I've had friends of mine in this area where I live in upstate New York. I had two friends of mine that went bushcrafting, and they went by themselves into one of the wooded areas close to us over here. And one of the it's like a big preserve, and they spent the night out there. They did some bushcrafting, they built a fire, and they camped out overnight. And all this, halfway through the night, they got surrounded by a pack of crazy coyotes, and the coyotes were howling, and they had to climb a tree. All right, my friends had to climb a tree to get away from the coyotes. And coyotes have been known to kill human beings. There was a woman in Canada that got stalked by two coyotes and killed and eaten, partially consumed. Very sad story. You can read about her. Okay, she was only like 18 or 19 years old. She went for a hike by herself, and two coyotes killed her and partially consumed her flesh. So if you're bugging out, be familiar with the wild animals that you're potentially going to be coming across. And also, weaponry is essential. Not just being aware of how to find the animals and knowing what animals are there, and identification of tracks and scat and things like that, but you also need to have the adequate weaponry. Okay, for example, a Glock 9mm. Many people will tell you that that's not an adequate woods gun. Okay, and the reason why is a Glock 9mm has terrible penetration, which is what you need when you're dealing with a large predatory animal like a bear or even a cougar or a elk or moose that's charging you. You need something that's got adequate stopping power and adequate penetration, and a 9mm just doesn't cut it. And that's why I always recommend for people, if they're going to be getting a handgun for SHTF and for bugging out, if you want to get yourself a handgun to keep in your bug out bag, so this way when it's time to bug out or to escape from the city, you have adequate weapons to not only deal with people, but you're going to have to also deal with animals. Okay, and I always recommend absolute minimum would be a 10mm. If you like semi-automatics and you're good with shooting a semi-automatic, a 10mm would be the logical choice for you. If you're a revolver guy like myself, then a 357 Magnum would be the starting point. If you live in the eastern U.S., a 357 or a 44 Magnum would be my choices for a woods gun and a bug out gun. If you live out west, you may have to go bigger than that. You may have to go with a 454 Casull or even a 500 Magnum. If you live in Montana or Alaska or areas where there's brown bears and, bison and moose and things like that, you may want to go bigger than a 44 Magnum, okay? But bottom line is you need adequate weaponry. You need proper bullets, okay? Jacketed hollow points are not going to work against a large predatory animal because they're not going to penetrate. So you need hard cast bullets or some kind of solid bullet, all right, that's not going to deform on impact and it's going to penetrate deep. You also need some kind of backup weapons as well, at least a knife. All right, when I go in the woods, I always have my pistol of some kind. I either have my 44 Magnum or my 500 Smith & Wesson, which I have on me right now. I either have those two, and then on top of that, I always have a knife on my waist that I can quickly deploy. All right, the key word there is quickly deploy. All right, you need to have a knife that you can quickly deploy and get out of your sheath quickly. All right, a kydex sheath is really good for that because you don't have to unsnap anything, you just pull it out. So I highly recommend you have a knife with at least a 5-inch blade that you can pull out of a kydex sheath on your waist. So, you know, God forbid if, let's say, your pistol doesn't work or it jams or you have a malfunction, you know, because a pistol is not a guaranteed thing. You know, it's a mechanical device and it can break. In the stress of the moment, you know, you could jam the weapon or cause a malfunction by not properly operating the weapon. So it's always good to have some kind of a backup plan, okay? And, you know, a knife is always a great backup plan. And, you know, because a knife will never fail you, okay? A knife is a knife. And so definitely want to have a knife as a backup, you know, but think about that, guys. You know, really think about, you know, if you're bugging out, you know, can you spend a night alone in the woods? Have you ever done that before? And, you know, maybe you should train yourself to do that. You know, go outside and spend time in the woods at night and, you know, acclimate yourself to the darkness and test your gear, test your mind, you know, because if you really have to bug out and you're going in the middle of nowhere by yourself, that's not a great position to be in, you know. And another thing too is it's not just bugging out, but, you know, another thing too is after SHTF, if there's a collapse of society, wild animals are probably going to be responsible for killing people more than human beings are, okay? The reason why is because wild animals are going to reclaim a lot of areas that are currently inhabited by people. And so once society collapses, you know, there's going to be entire neighborhoods and towns and villages that are abandoned. You know, just like we see in Michigan and areas of Detroit, you have entire cities that have been abandoned, and wild animals have come and filled that void and reclaimed those areas where people are not living in anymore. And you know, you have also wild dogs. Okay, wild dogs are another problem. You know, wild dogs are a huge problem in Michigan and parts of Detroit. You know, in those abandoned areas of the city. You know, after SHTF, a lot of dogs are going to be abandoned by their owners, and you know, those dogs are going to form up into big packs, and they're going to roam around and they're going to look for people and other animals to kill and eat. Okay, and that happens right now, and it's not even SHTF. So, you know, also if you're in an urban area, you got to think about giant packs of dogs that are going to be roaming around. And let's say you're bugging out and you run into one of these packs of dogs, you have to, you know, have a plan to deal with them. And adequate weapons and skills to deal with that situation. Just like with a bear or coyote or wolves. I forgot to mention wolves too. That's another threat to deal with if you live in the West or in the Midwest. And another thing too is that, you know, I think after SHTF, wild animal populations are going to rebound tremendously because you're not going to have game management. You're not going to have conservation departments that manage populations. Okay, like right now, during rule of law, you have conservation departments in every state that make sure that certain populations of predators don't get out of control. All right, like you know, you have coyote hunting seasons and different hunting seasons. Everything is managed. And you know, if there's problem animals, you know, you have animal control that comes and takes the animal away, and all those things are going to be gone after society collapses. And you know, all these predator populations are going to skyrocket, and they're going to have a lot of easy meals too, because you're going to have a lot of desperate, hungry city slickers running around, and they're going to fall victim to coyotes, bears, and wolves. They're going to be running around looking for food, and they're going to fall victim or they're going to become prey to a lot of those predators. And the predator populations are going to explode after society collapses, in my opinion. And we only have to look to the Soviet Union. During the Cold War in Siberia, there were as many as tens of thousands of Russians that were killed by wolf packs. Okay, during the Cold War, there were giant wolf packs that would roam around Siberia, especially during very cold winters. These wolf packs would be huge, and they would get together and overpower any animal because they were just absolutely massive wolf packs with like 50 wolves. And they would go into villages too, and they would kill people and eat them because the wolves were starving. And so any animal, I don't care what the biologists and the animal experts tell you that, okay, a black bear is less likely to attack you than a grizzly bear, and you don't have to worry about black bears, and, the chances of being attacked by a bear is low, and blah, blah, blah. The chances of being attacked by a coyote is low. Meanwhile, you turn on the news and you turn on TV and you see all these people getting attacked by coyotes and cougars and bears all the time. All right. So don't listen to these experts because they don't know anything. All right. They've never spent time in the wilderness like me. They haven't actually seen these animals up close. They're doing mathematical calculations. And the bottom line is any animal, when it's hungry, when it's injured, or when it's cornered, or when it's protecting its young, will attack you. Okay. Doesn't matter how nice that animal was yesterday. If that animal becomes hungry, if you mess with its cubs, if it's injured, if you corner it, it's going to go after you. Okay. So during the Soviet Union, tens of thousands of Russians got killed by wolf packs, and the Russian government, the Soviets, not the Russian government, but the Soviet Union, Stalin, they kept that a secret, okay, because they didn't want the rest of the world to know that all these people died. And it was only after the Soviet Union collapsed that all that information became public, and all those documents were released of all the people that were killed by these wolf packs. And so I think the same thing will happen after SHTF, after a collapse of society. You're going to have, packs of wolves, packs of coyotes, packs of dogs, bears, all kinds of animals. The populations are going to explode, and there's not going to be any conservation officers to help you and to keep these animals in check. All right, so you're going to have to fend for yourself. And like I said, you need to understand these animals, their habits. You need to know how to defend yourself against them. You need to know their vital spots. Shooting an animal and stopping an animal attack is a lot different than stopping a human attack. Okay, the vital areas of a bear or a coyote or a wolf are located in a different location than people. So you need to understand where the vital areas are so you can stop a charge and stop an attack quickly. Okay. So you need to think about that. You need to think about, having adequate weapons. 10 millimeter and 357, in my opinion, are absolute minimum, with good hard cast bullets or solids. If you can't get hard casts, I would recommend a full metal jacket, which is not as good as a hard cast, but it's better than a hollow point. But ideally, you want a good hard cast bullet with Brunel hardness of 18 or better. 18 to 21 is the sweet spot for the hardness. Brunel hardness is how hard the bullet is. And you need to have backup weapons, and you need to really think about, the threat of animals after SHTF, whether you're bugging out, and even if you have a bug out location, and let's say you're outside doing chores, and your kids are outside doing chores, you can't leave your kids outside unattended, especially after SHTF, when the predator populations are going to explode, like I mentioned. I've seen, even actually close to where I live only about 30 miles away from where I live, there was a young Jewish kid that was killed by a bear. And what happened was, this Jewish family from New York City, they had a retreat, in the Catskills, and which is common. A lot of Jewish people, they have these entire towns in the Catskills where they have cabins and bungalows, and they come up on the weekends. They have weekend retreats, and I guess this lady, she left her baby outside in the backyard, and a bear came out from the tree line and grabbed the baby and dragged it into the woods. And the baby was eventually released by the bear, but just the fact that the bear grabbed the baby in its mouth, the baby died, unfortunately. And you can read about that. It happened in Fallsburg, New York, all right, not far from where I live in the Catskills. So I think situations like that will happen after SHTF. I think a lot of people are going to get attacked while they're working on their property, even while they're doing security patrols. If you have a group of guys and you guys are, doing a security sweep of your area and doing a security patrol of your property, what happens if while you're doing a security patrol, you run into a pack of wolves or coyotes or stray dogs? Or let's say 20 stray dogs are coming after you and your group. You have like 4 or 5 guys, and you get surrounded by a huge pack of stray dogs, roaming the area. What are you going to do then? And if you're bugging out by yourself and you run into a pack of coyotes, 10 or 20 coyotes or stray dogs, man, you're in trouble. So you really have to think about all these things. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I couldn't really bring you any good visual footage to look at, but it's in the middle of the night right now. So, but thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.